Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Evelyn Rosengren-Hovey with Gen Next Education and the International Knowledge Center. We have with us today representatives from several universities, and we will introduce them here shortly. I see that we have people joining us from India, but also in the Middle East, in Dubai, and it looks like a couple of people also coming in from Qatar. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your Saturday evening to join us for this important topic. Before I turn this over to Girish Balola, our CEO of Gen Next Education, I will just quickly say that we also have on the call Marco Dinavelli from Rutgers University. We have Nicole from St. Cloud State University, Pablo from the University of New Mexico, and Becky from the University of Iowa. Each of them will in turn take some time talking to you about what they're seeing on their campuses. But first I'm going to hand this over to Girish to talk a little bit about the topic for us. So Girish, take it away.
Thank you, Evelyn. Again, good evening, everybody. Thank you for making time to be with us. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about the impact of the elections. Needless to say, it has been an interesting few weeks here, and we're all trying to wrap our heads around what, if any, impact the elections will have on the future for international students coming to the U.S., both for study and for long-term opportunities. I remain confident in that the U.S. still is the best destination for international students to come get an excellent education. And in addition to that, I think our universities are committed to making sure that they're providing all students with one of the best experiences that the students can experience, not only from an academic standpoint, from all of the other aspects as well, including safety and security on campus and the diversity understanding and all of that. So our panelists here today will speak a little bit about some of the things that they're seeing and what, if anything, they're doing on campus to make it even better for your students coming to study here. We really would like for it to be interactive, and we're looking forward to answering any and all questions you might have. So as we go through and the panelists are presenting their slides, if you could enter your questions in the question box, we will moderate that and hopefully get to all of your questions. So once again, thank you very much, and I'll hand it back to Evelyn here, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Girish. We did poll some of the current Indian students that are studying on our partner campuses, and I might get into those a little bit later, but I think since we have such wonderful presenters with us already, we're going to go ahead and hear from them first. So, Becky, we are going to start with you at the University of Iowa, and I know that you are also joined by someone from your student services team who can speak to this point as well.
Yes, good morning. Becky Hansen here, and Lee Seedorf from our ISSS office has wonderful insight into all of the things that we work very hard on to make this a welcoming campus university. So you go ahead and advance, so just showing you a glance at, give you a frame of reference of where we're speaking from today in that old Capitol shot. At the University of Iowa, we are very strong in international enrollments to begin with. This might be something that you look for as students or parents. Is this a community where they're already used to having large numbers of international students? China's #1, South Korea, India, 324 students choose us each year. So again, we are known as a college town. If that's not a term familiar to you yet, it means that the university dominates the city. It is the leading employer. The community caters to the university's calendar. So it's really a campus that gives its attention to its student enrollment on campus, and the students have a lot of say. There's student governments that help us put their concerns to the forefront. So again, that maybe you look for a college town as a place to study. Go ahead. I thought I would touch on the next slide on the many things that we have in place. Again, as you consider where to study, do some research and see if they have this type of support after you're there. Not just, yes, they have adjustment for you for an orientation program, but does it go beyond that? Does it continue throughout your studies? So I'll just go quickly through these. Most campuses do have a Center for Diversity and Enrichment that's designed to make a welcoming environment for all students. We have a general education requirement, so our students will be required to take a course for credit in international and global issues, inclusion and diversity, values and culture. We found that to be extremely important for all of our graduates to have that in their background. We have Global Mosaic Residence Hall is a floor called a living and learning community. It's a choice that students can make if they want to live with other international students in their residence halls. The ISSS office, again, Lee can speak more to this. These cultural adjustment sessions that they have, they're not just for new arrivals, but they're ongoing throughout the year. We have a Life in Iowa series, events, cultural events constantly on campus. We really rely on our student organizations to present their cultural nights. Lots of Friends of International Students. You can see an Indian student, Shachi Vyas. She's a past student from Ahmedabad, blogged about her experiences through the FIS. Maybe you want to look for that later. International Student Advisory Board. This is associated with our student government to bring international concerns to the forefront, and they are going to be certainly a very active group, an active board going forward this year. OASIS, Global Buddies, Bridging Global Diversity, International Classroom Journey. Again, we do lots and lots of in-depth things throughout the year. One of our India travelers, Tom Paulson, does a really cool thing. After his India tours, he comes back to share that with his own elementary kids' classrooms. So we try to go that extra mile. Look for these characteristics in the campuses that you're considering. Lee, do you want to comment on any of these programs that you find especially of use?
Actually, I can comment more specifically, to the question of the post-election issues then and how that ties into all of this. So on our campus, we basically started hearing, right away the next morning after the election from students, international students, what does this mean for me? Am I going to have to leave the U.S.? Is something going to change with the student visa regulations? Particularly Muslim students, showed various concerns. So I sent an email to students on that first day, sort of seeing where things were going and wanting to try to both reassure students and also dispel some of the rumors that were happening on our campus. First of all, assuring students that I don't expect any changes to student visa regulations coming out of the new administration. That's just not something that we've heard any indication of. I would be very surprised if that happens. So talking about that, because there were rumors about, maybe all Saudi students are going to have to leave, or something's going to change with the visa regs, and we just haven't been seeing that. But beyond that, there were more immediate concerns about, do students need to be afraid of how they might be targeted based on their personal identities because of so much of the rhetoric that occurred during the campaign. And then there's reasons for students to certainly have those fears and concerns. In the Iowa City area, we have not seen a large number of issues. I'm happy to report that. Some things have gone on, but our campus and community, like Becky mentioned, it's a very supportive community for international students. Just to give some examples, on our campus, about a year or so ago, the university took steps to provide prayer space for Muslim students. So if a student was to encounter issues on campus based on personal identity, the university is going to be a very strong backer to support those students, and we're not hearing a lot of reports along those lines at this point. There's also a bias assessment team on our campus where if students do experience incidences of bias, they can report that to the team who will help the students, in a number of ways, whether it's just providing a supportive person to talk to, or if there could be a legal criminal element to it, they will let students know how to take steps for that. Also in the community at large, there's been a discussion group through our College of Law that's involving local attorneys, people from our local city and county governments, our office, people who provide services, not just to those here on an international student visa, but immigrants in general, undocumented, people here on employment visas. So talking about ways that the community itself can make sure that people are being supported and protected in as many ways as possible.
Thank you very much. We hope we show that we are a very supportive environment, and we would love to welcome you to the Hawkeye family.
Okay, so I guess I'm up now. Everybody can hear me okay, I'm hoping. My name is Marco Dinovelli. I'm the Associate Director of International Recruitment at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Becky and Lee, I think, did such an outstanding job about talking about all the great services that are offered on U.S. campuses to showcase diversity and all the many things we're doing to bring students together and to make students feel welcome on our campuses. When the election results came out, I actually happened to be out of the country, and I was traveling with counselors from around the world. And for many of us, there was great shock. We were certainly not expecting the results of the election that came out. And anytime in life you have such a great shock and things don't go the way you're expecting, there's really two choices you have. You can either just accept it, okay, this is the way it is, and start going on with your life, or you can figure out, okay, this is the way it's going to be. And what are we going to do about it, and how are we going to make sure that what's important to us doesn't change, and that people still feel the way that they need to feel on our campuses. Evelyn, can you go to the next slide, please? Wanted to start out here that this isn't just a Rutgers thing. I think this is something that is so common across the different universities in the U.S. Is that when the results of the election came out, college communities, universities really start saying, okay, we want everyone to know that this does not change who we are on our campuses. We have such great diversity on our campuses. It's something that's so important to us. With over 1 million international students studying in the U.S. now, we want everyone to know that they are safe on our campuses, they are welcome on our campuses, their opinions are valued on our campuses, and they're something. They're people we do not want to leave, and we want to keep and feel safe on our campuses. So this is exactly what the results of the elections led us to be. It wasn't that anyone just gave up. No one suddenly decided they were going to change how they thought. It was, okay, just because this election didn't go our way, we are not going to change, and we still want you to be here. Evelyn, can you go to the next slide? And this is certainly something that was the case at Rutgers, as well. As soon as the election results came out, we're a university that prides itself on diversity. New Jersey's one of the most diverse states in the U.S., and Rutgers has over 6,000 international students. It was something where we're like, okay, we want our students to feel safe, and what can we do? And a lot of that meant our students, faculty, and professors taking to the streets to really make sure that all the other students out there, students from all over the world, could see that we believe that our campus was a safe place for them, and that they should stay there and feel safe. Can you go to the next slide, Ed? And this has been something that came down from all levels. The Rutgers president, faculty, student, staff, pledged that any student who's on our campus will be protected. Their rights will be protected, their viewpoints. We value the views and the different perspectives of students from all over the place. So nothing has really changed on our campuses. I know the election, it feels like suddenly, things are different in the U.S. But on the colleges and universities that we come from, that is not the case. You know, if anything, students are more galvanized. They want to be together. They want to show support for each other in ways that maybe they weren't talking about before. Now they are coming out publicly showing that they support each other and they want to help each other. And they want to make sure that everyone feels safe on our campuses. Just thinking about this call right now, you have a number of universities that are chatting with you right now. International enrollment is so important to us. It's something that we value so much at our institutions that we're not stopping what we're doing because of the election. We're doing more. We're taking part in webinars like this. We're talking to more students and parents and families about the value that their students bring to our campuses and how important their safety and protecting them is to us. So we're not going to stop suddenly recruiting international students. That's not anything that's going to change with us. We're probably going to be doing more now to bring in more international students. And with that, we want to do more to make them feel safe and show them that the U.S. is still a great place for them to be studying, and there's still amazing places for them to get their education in the U.S. So you're not going to see less from us. You're going to see more from us. And that's just to show things haven't changed at our universities. An election happened. It might not be the person people were hoping is going to be the president, but our campuses remain the outstanding places they've always been for your students and your sons and daughters, and we will continue to keep that in mind as we're recruiting them and making sure that when they come to our campus, they feel like welcomed and that they have a great time on our campuses. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to us. Really appreciate the time, and if you have any questions about Rutgers later on, please let me know.
And Nicole.
Yes, hello. I am Nicole Pasternak. I'm the Director of International Recruitment, Marketing, and Admissions at St. Cloud State University, located in Minnesota. And as Becky had said at the beginning, student success and support is very important to all of our campuses. I don't think there's a campus that's going to say we don't want to support your success. However, as Becky had said, there are a lot of support services that you'll want to make sure are available on the campus that you're choosing. And at St. Cloud State, we have the usual kinds of support services available. But also, because we do value international students and diversity on our campus from all over the world and all different backgrounds, we do have some additional kinds of things in place to help support students, but also to educate students that maybe haven't had a lot of, maybe they're not from a location that has a lot of diversity, and coming to our campus may be a little bit of a shock because we are a very diverse campus. And so we have one of the very first things that all students, new students to our campus have to take is it's not for credit, but it is a requirement for all students. It's called Respect and Responsibility. And it's a two-part session. There's an online component, and then there's an in-person classroom component where all students listen to, and it's an interactive session about respecting each other and your responsibility as a student on our campus to value that diversity and inclusion. We also, or one thing I wanted to piggyback off of what Marco had said is that one thing to keep in mind is that U.S. law and practice in the U.S. and on our institutions does not move quickly. So even if there are some things that end up being changed, law and government does not change that quickly. So I think we need to also keep that in mind as we're thinking through how the changes might affect our campuses. Change does not happen very fast. So that's one thing. I mean, as soon as the election happened, all of us were like it's been expressed before, a little bit of a shock and wonderment. And a lot of us received emails and phone calls about, how does this change things? And I keep expressing to those students and families, things just don't change that quickly. So let's just see what happens, but we are all dedicated to make sure that students are successful and safe. Another thing that I wanted to bring up, I think we can go to the next slide, Evelyn. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is that students are very powerful as a group. So our students came together of all backgrounds. They organized what they call St. Cloud United, and it shows the power in the students organizing together and supporting one another. So while there are a lot of support services on campus, and we have the supports in place to assist students in their safety and security, we want to let you know that we've had international students on our campus for over 60 years, and we are very tied to the community. So that St. Cloud United that students put together was a whole community event, as well as kind of an organized way of showing support for all diversity and backgrounds. So please do not be afraid of coming to the United States at this time. We are, as we've all been stating, we want students to feel safe. We're working on ways to ensure that students have a way of expressing that, and that we can come together and try to figure out ways of making sure that students are safe and secure on our campuses.
Thank you, Nicole. And finally, Pablo.
All right, good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Pablo Torres. I'm the Director of International Admissions at the University of New Mexico. New Mexico, contrary to its name, it is part of the United States. It's in the southwestern region of the U.S., between Texas and California. We're in the Rocky Mountain area. New Mexico is it's a large state land-wise, but it doesn't have a huge population, probably about 2 million people, and half of those people live in Albuquerque, which is our largest city, which is where the University of New Mexico is located. New Mexico has a really long history of diversity. It was originally founded by Spanish colonists who came to the area, and before them there were native populations that had lived here for thousands of years. The two oldest continuously inhabited communities in the United States are actually in New Mexico. They're both native communities. One's called Taos, the other one's called Acoma. New Mexico, it's been a diverse state since before diversity really was a valued term. It's just part of the fabric of the state. We're the only state in the United States that's officially bilingual. We have a constitution that's written in English and Spanish. It's a majority state, meaning that majority of the population here are racial and ethnic minorities. So racial and ethnic minorities make up the majority of the population of the state. Interesting statistic is, we have the third highest rate of interracial marriage in the United States, meaning people of different racial and ethnic backgrounds who get married. So it isn't just a collection of, diversity where people sort of live in the same area but don't interact. There's a lot of interaction amongst the various populations and groups here. So it's something that New Mexico is very proud of. We've been a quote-unquote blue state, meaning that we've voted more for the liberal or progressive parties in the past elections. A lot of people here were surprised by the election outcome, but me personally, kind of as a private citizen, I'm really not too concerned. In fact, I think the next few years are going to actually be a pretty exciting time in the United States, and I think it would be an exciting time to actually study here, to sort of observe just how the country is going to move forward, towards ideally common goals. I think there will be a flourishing in the arts, which I'm already seeing happening in New Mexico. We have a large arts population here. On this slide, you'll see there's some information here about the arts and film industry within New Mexico, and we're already seeing a lot of arts groups coming up with basically responses to what they're seeing, on the national scale. New Mexico is far from the power centers of the U.S. Sometimes it feels like we're in an island. We're sort of in a mountain area surrounded by plains and deserts, and so sometimes it feels like we kind of are, sort of our own sort of province in a way. And with that, there comes a lot of independence, and people here aren't always concerned about what the federal government's going to do. We have a lot of entrepreneurs, people here sort of take matters into their own hands and create their own lifestyles and their own opportunities. So we're not so concerned about one person's rule. It's in general we're pretty independent about how we manage our own lives. But the election, I think people are worried about some of the rhetoric that's coming out. Ultimately, this is a huge country. The United States is the third largest country in the U.S. Maybe soon will be overtaken by Nigeria, but India, China are 1 and 2, and from what I understand, the United States is number 3. So there are a lot of people here, and it's a lot of folks that things have to get through in order for changes to happen. So I think it's going to be an interesting time to see how the Congress and the executive powers work together. Maybe go to the next slide, Evelyn.
It wants to advance, but it is not.
That's okay.
Go down. Oh,
there we go. So the University of New Mexico, it's the main research university for the state. It's the what we call the flagship university. There are about 29,000 students at the University of New Mexico. 1,500 are international. Our international students come from 99 countries. If you include the U.S., you have students from 100 from 100 countries. In a recent survey in 2014, the University of New Mexico was ranked number 2 for arrival services for international students, meaning that international students gave New Mexico high marks for the services that we provide to students when they're new to the university and to the U.S. We have a very strong student advising center here that works with students and offers workshops weekly on topics related to culture and social adjustment in the U.S. The campus itself is incredibly diverse. It's one of the most diverse countries in the U.S. There's basically a little stat there that New Mexico is only one of 4 universities that hold the designation of being a Hispanic serving institution and also a very high research university. It's interwoven into the fabric here. You see students from different backgrounds interacting and becoming friends with each other. It's very much a part of the community here. Whenever our president-elect Donald Trump came to visit Albuquerque in the fall, he received one of the worst welcomes probably anywhere, and you can actually find this in the news. There were very strong protests against him, and a lot of that was led by folks affiliated with the university, primarily students. So the University of New Mexico is committed to protecting students and to achieving a welcoming community for all students here. We have an organization called Lobo Respect and also a Be Kind campaign where students essentially wear buttons that show that they are welcoming to students of all backgrounds. That commitment is very strong here, and you'll find that at most universities in the United States that international students are welcome. We're happy to have them here, and they contribute greatly to our communities and education of everybody. So that is not going to change. That's whoever's in power is not going to change how these things function at these levels. So I do look forward to hearing questions that people have, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, everyone. I apologize for the formatting for the PowerPoint presentation, but I think the message came through very strongly. Before we get to questions, I just wanted to read a few statements that we had from students, from current Indian students who are on campuses in the U.S. We asked them, did they still feel safe? Did they feel that they were still going to be successful in the U.S. as students? And the resounding response was yes, that they do. But I picked out a couple of quotes that I found particularly poignant. But while I'm reading this, if you have questions, please type them into the question or chat box and we will read them off here in just a minute. So this is one student. Her name is Apurva. She is in her, I believe in her senior year now, studying in the US. And she said that in her little bubble of inclusion and diversity, it's great. I have a great student support system. Being a student leader in the student government, we've been focused on being inclusive this year. I will not say that the election hasn't affected us because that would be false, but the university has taken measures such as reminding the students of the Dean of Students' Office Services, memorizing protective student services phone numbers and more so that you can call them if needed, to make sure that students with an international background feel safe and a part of campus. And then her advice would be to any students who are thinking about coming that I would say stay educated, download news apps, follow what's happening, and discuss things with friends you make. Be aware of what's going on your campus. Talk to your international student services, and do not internalize or normalize these incidents if they do happen. But so far, students have said that they haven't experienced any problems on their campus. And finally, I'm going to read one more statement by another student who's on the other side of the country. Her name is Esther. She's originally from Chennai. And when I asked her what advice would she give to students who are thinking about coming in this post-election world, she said this: when you follow your dream, you will follow it no matter what, period. However, talking about the new president, I feel most university campuses are internationally friendly. America as an electoral college elected Trump, but the Americans as a people did not. And of course, this is her opinion, and we could argue those points, but I'm going to continue her statement. If one is going to the US to study, they need not be worried. Americans are incredibly kind and helpful. I can prove this by all the kindness and love my fellow dorm residents, friends, and classmates have for me. There will be exceptions, but not many. I believe there are obstacles to being an international student, but the new president is not. As a country and as a people, we must prove we are brave and not cower away from the new president and enable him to be more than just what he wants. And then she says that was long, but that's what I feel. And I think that it's interesting that she kind of identifies here, you know, students that were here for the election went through something incredible and they're being part of history. And I think as Pablo was saying, and as everyone said, this is, you know, a surprise, but doesn't have to be the end or have to change anything. With that, we'll go ahead and shift to questions.
Evelyn, can I add a couple of comments?
Absolutely.
Please.
Please.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for sharing very important and critical information. And for our audience, I wanted to share a couple of thoughts with you. I've heard a lot of concerns right after the elections came out, particularly from a safety, security standpoint. And as our panelists today said, you know, our whole effort as the international education professionals is to make sure that we're creating safe, secure environments for all of our students, whether they're from a foreign country or whether they're from here in the US. So that goes without saying that the level of commitment that we have to make sure that every single student has the best experience they can on campus. Now, granted, there have been incidents. We read about it in the paper, and unfortunately, there have been some. And our hope and our wish is that in times of such confusion or such uncertainty, it's even more important for us to host students from around the world so that we can continue to educate our people here to say, you know, the world is, you know, what it is, and there's a lot of misconceptions out there, misperceptions out there that we need to clear away. And the best way to do it is to have ambassadors from around the world to come here to educate everybody. So that's one thing on that. The other piece that I want to address is that I've heard a lot of students and parents ask questions about any changes to admission standards or financial requirements. And at this point, I can unequivocally say that there will be no changes, particularly to any admission requirements. The admission requirements are the same, and they might vary a little bit from year to year based on some English proficiency requirements or financial stability requirements, etc. But beyond that, there won't be any new requirement put in place just because there's a new president. So please be assured that things you've been preparing for isn't all of a sudden going to change as you start applying to universities. And then the last thing that I want to address is now questions about the long term. People are asking about how the OPT, the optional practical training, might change, or if they'll be removed or it will be withdrawn, or the H-1B process will be changed. I want you to understand that these kinds of programs that are in effect here in the U.S. are legislative processes. It's not one person's whim or fancy. So if there was a question about the OPT or the H-1B process for long term, if the U.S. government wants to change some of that, it has to go through a lengthy legislative process. It's not on January 20th that Donald Trump becomes president and immediately changes everything. So I want you to think about that. And in conversation last week with a parent, something occurred to me. When you talk about impact for long-term employment, that was the conversation that I was having. And something occurred to me in that conversation, which is, if you are now looking at studying in the U.S., you probably are planning on starting. Earliest would be next September, right? So you'll be a 2017 student. So you're not graduating till 4 years after. You know, if you're so concerned that President Trump's term as a president will be not as conducive to long-term employability, et cetera, think about it. By the time you graduate college, there will be a new president in place, right? Hopefully. And so things to kind of think about and not to react strongly to maybe rumors that are out there about how the OPT has gone away, how the H-1B has gone away. I don't think the country as a whole and the industry here will ever let that happen, because it's proven again and again and again that we absolutely need the best and the brightest from around the world to come here, get the best education they can, so they can fill the available job opportunities that we currently have and will continue to have. So I just wanted to share those thoughts, and Evelyn, back to you.
Thank you, Girish. And now at this point, we do have some questions piling up. If I could also ask all of our representatives from the universities to type your contact information into the chat, make sure it's set to all, so that if people have questions, there are a few questions piling up about your specific institutions, that they can address those directly to you after the presentation is over. But right now we will go to questions generally dealing with this topic. And then they can also follow up with you on that. Girish, you kind of addressed this, but I want to send this to our panelists as well. If you could each in turn talk about this, how would this affect the finance required for international studies? Who would like to take that question? And you will have to unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry. So as far as financing, I know at Rutgers we have not made any changes to our cost of tuition or for international students, and that will not change because of this election. Our scholarships that we're offering have not changed because of the results of this election. If anything, we're hoping that they will be higher in future years, the amounts that we're giving to students. And in speaking to colleagues at other universities in the U.S., no one is suddenly looking to change what they're charging or charge more to international students in any way. So I really don't see there being a big change or any change whatsoever when it comes to what the election having any direct change on what universities are going to charge international students.
Thank you, Marco. Will the restrictions on H-1B visas affect foreign students? This was touched upon, but who would like to take that question? And maybe Lee, actually, if I could actually ask you to speak to this, because you were talking with us earlier about H-1B, and you're, I think, maybe more familiar with it. You and Becky were speaking about this morning. Could you talk a little bit about H-1B visa process and how, if at all, that is changing?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. At this point in time, nothing is changing regarding the H-1B. Again, as Girish mentioned earlier, this type of thing, if if the federal government really wanted to change something, such as reducing the number of H-1Bs, that would have to take congressional action, which, if you observe U.S. politics, you probably know that that can take a long time, and sometimes things just don't happen. So nothing is just going to immediately happen to change the H-1B process anyway. So the way it works right now is still going to be the way that we expect it to work when April 1st comes around. There is a limit, and there has been for a number of years, on the number of H-1B available every year. So that's still the same as it's always been. And right now there are usually 2 or 3 times as many people applying for it as there are numbers available. So really the biggest issue, most of our students who are graduating, and usually they'll do a year or 2 or 3 years of OPT and then apply for H-1B. The biggest issue they face is just the odds. It's like the odds of winning a lottery. You have to get the applications on time, and then it's sort of the luck of the draw because of this cap or limited number of H-1Bs available. But I haven't seen anything that leads me to suspect that's going to change. Now, I know that the president-elect talked about he wants to do things to the H-1B program, but if you're observing politics lately, the person he's trying to appoint as his labor secretary is actually very much in favor of international employment opportunities and actually increasing that. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see, despite the talk about some of the anti-immigrant sentiment when it comes to the workforce, I think there's even the potential to actually see H-1Bs increase given this new labor secretary. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Lee. And as a follow-up, you can take this or someone else can. What would be the best source for updates in terms of an authority on the subject of updates to the legislation regarding H-1B visas? And let me make sure that I'm reading this question correctly. What is the best source of information on the latest immigration, international student work authorization policies? Who can we trust?
You can trust the schools. If you are admitted to and you're either attending or you're going to attend a school, talk to the International Student Office at that school, because this is what we do. If you're still at the point where you're thinking of applying, following reputable news sources, BBC, CNN, things like that, looking at the U.S. government websites. The Department of Homeland Security oversees student immigration issues, as well as employment immigration visas, things like that. So theirs would be a reliable source of information on this. There's also national organizations like NAFSA, which is spelled N-A-F-S-A. Technically, it's more for people like me and Becky and the other presenters who are international education professionals, but they do put out a lot of information on their website with updates about any potential changes to regulations and things like that. So those are a few suggestions.
Thank you. And going to the next question, and we will have time for a few more. Will it help if I have any certificate that is related to social services, like teaching in orphanages or something similar? Nicole or Pablo, would one of you like to take that?
Sure, this is Pablo. Yeah, I definitely think those types of experiences do help, and I would I feel confident saying that that would help you at most universities. Anything that shows other interests that you have outside of academics and how they relate to your own sort of personal work ethic are good to see. So just depending on the universities you're applying to, you'll just want to navigate how you would share that information with them. So depending if you're an undergraduate or graduate applicant, there's different ways to share that information. But at the University of New Mexico, we would certainly welcome seeing that type of certificate.
Okay. And then a follow-up to that. Well, I think you addressed that question and took care of that. And this could go to any of you. What is the worst case scenario for international students applying under this new administration? Who
Well,
wants to take that question?
I can take that. Well, I think the worst case scenario is the same worst case scenario that it's always been, which is unfortunately you don't get into a school that you're applying to. Under the new president, none of us are changing our admission policies. None of us are changing our scholarships we're offering. It's not changing anything that happens at the university level. We're still free to make the decisions on who we admit and where they're coming from. It's not something where anyone gets to say, oh, well, now you can't do this. So really, as far as applying to our universities, nothing has changed. It's going to be the same process you're going through. You're going to have the same review process that we've always gone through. No one's, as far as the admission process is going to be looking, at anything different. We're not suddenly saying what country is this student from or what religion is the student. It's the exact same process we've always had. And, again, I want to come back to this, we go out, we travel around the world. We spend a lot of money to go to, literally dozens and dozens of countries every year. And we do that because we want international students. And we're not going to stop wanting international students on our campuses. If we didn't want international students, we wouldn't be going out and traveling and doing all the great work we're doing around the world. We wouldn't be doing webinars like this. That desire, that passion for having international students be part of our communities is not going away. So you stand the same chance of getting admitted as you always did, and that would not have changed no matter who had won the election.
Thank you, Marco. Can you comment, and this would be a question to each of you, of how outside of your international offices, you've touched on this a little bit in your presentations, but how are you connecting with, let's say, other services on campus that are for all students, but may not have as much experience with international students? And then how are you dealing with the larger community, and how are you integrated with that?
I can go ahead with that first.
Thank you.
Nicole. So I touched on that a little bit with our St. Cloud United, the student organizations banded together and organized to actually work with the community. We have as a university, a very strong connection to our community with the police department and also the mayor's office. And as far as on campus, I think a lot of education continually happens on campus to help people understand and work toward really helping students. It doesn't matter if the student is international or not. It's a continual process when we have new employees to talk with them about making sure that they're being understanding and respecting all cultures. So I don't think it's specific to international students. I think it's just an ongoing process whenever new staff come on board, and also just to remind people all the time of helping each other out, being kind, and not having students run around campus for various things, to just pick up the phone and call another office if you have a question to help a student, rather than sending a student around to another office. So I think it's an ongoing process, a continual process, and because we're an education institution, we believe that education just continues and expands all the time.
Thank you, Nicole. Would anyone else like to comment?
Yeah, I can add something. This is Lee again with the University of Iowa, and similar to what Nicole has already said, and this is the case with other universities as well. There's actually a lot that goes on university-wide just outside the International Student Services offices like mine. I mean, that's what we want to see. We don't want it to be that we're the only office who can and should do anything to support international students on our campus. Our student government, for example, is extremely proactive when it comes to international student issues. In the last number of years, we've really seen huge increases in the number of international students who participate in our student government. But you also see that support from the domestic students as well. And so that's a continual thing that we're always working on here is, you know, it's not just international students who have to adjust when they come here, it's domestic students need to as well. The same thing with our staff and faculty. We offer a lot of training programs and workshops to help our campus staff to improve their intercultural awareness and skill set when working with not just international students, but students of a wide variety and of diversity. And then I mentioned this earlier, I think there definitely is a very good working relationship with our city government. And this is a small university town, population around 70,000 for Iowa City. So if I go outside my office and cross the street one way, I'm on the campus. If I cross the street the other way, it's the town. So that's how closely embedded, you don't really separate the two. So the local government here is extremely supportive of international student issues. They've done a lot of things in terms of helping people look out for housing rights and things like that. And so they are definitely responding to the current situation post-election, considerations of becoming a sanctuary city. That term was mentioned earlier. Other ways to make sure that all of our international members and immigrant folks who are in the Iowa City area feel safe and supported. So there is a lot going on.
Okay. Would anyone else care to comment about what's going on in their campuses with that? Otherwise, we have a few more questions that we want to get to. Okay. Could you comment on how this will affect long-term employment post-university in the U.S.? We've kind of addressed this a little bit, but would someone else like to take this and just reiterate some of those points or add to them?
I mean, I can readdress it, I guess. I know there's a lot of concerns about post-employment or post-education employment. And I know I mentioned earlier about this whole 4 years. Think about it if you're here for 4 years. But I didn't take into account any students coming here for graduate study. As has been mentioned many times by many of our panelists here, nothing right now that has to do anything with post-education employment, which is an OPT or an H-1B process, has changed. We haven't heard of anything in the news about it. There's any intention for it to be changed. If there ever was an intention for it to be changed, like Lee said, it is a long process. It's a legislative process, so it could take months, if not years, for it to have any impact on what's happening right now. And so I wouldn't be as concerned about the opportunities to work here post-education, whether it's through an OPT or eventually through an H-1B. Now, having said that, all of the requirements that were in place on November 7th currently are in place. So the chances of you getting an OPT employment or you successfully getting H-1B are the same today as it was a month and a half ago. And I would imagine it will remain the same for the foreseeable future. And I would actually echo what Lee said. The new nominee for Labor Department is very much a proponent of increasing immigrant employment through the H-1B program. So I would imagine if there was any change at all, given what's going on here demographically speaking in the U.S., I would only see that number going up in terms of the H-1B allocation. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about some of those things. And I know it's easy for us to say sitting here, but I would like to assure you that as a country, things haven't changed so much just because one person got elected over the other. And so I want you to be confident about your decision to come here. It is an excellent decision. I hope not only that you continue to be interested and apply and go through the process of coming here, but you'd encourage others within your friends and family to also consider that as an excellent opportunity.
Thank you, Girish. Our final question I'm getting through, we got a couple questions coming through WhatsApp. Are there going to be any distinctions made between students coming from India versus students coming from the Middle East, like the UAE? Marco, you kind of touched on this, but I think it's probably worth mentioning again. So if you want to take that question, and then if others want to chime in, then we can do that as well.
Sure. I think that I'm trying to understand, exactly where the question is coming from. If the question is, will students from the Middle East be treated differently than students from India? Really, again, universities, we're looking for more international students coming from a wider array of places, and Trump winning this election does not change that at all. No one is suddenly, oh, now we don't want students from the Middle East, or oh, we don't want Muslim students now. That's not changing at any of our universities. We continue to want to attract students from all over the world. We want an array of different cultures, or different experiences, of different perspectives. So that is not changing. So it's not that we're going to look at students from the UAE different from students from India. We're looking for international students from all over the world. So no one needs to be, worried more than someone else because, oh, I'm in this country, that means they're not going to want me anymore. That is not happening at our universities. We are still looking at students from all over the world the same, and still wanting students from so many different places.
Thank you, Marco.
Marco, if I could just address or add one thing to that, I hope everybody realizes that the process of applying and the decision to admit you is based solely on the university. There's no federal requirement or oversight that dictates how a university sets its admission standards. But you also have to remember that the visa process is not the university's process. It's the Department of State. The State Department and the Consular Services decides who gets a visa or not. And again, the requirements for you to successfully get a student visa has not changed from what it was on November 7th. So I don't anticipate that changing at all in terms of the requirements. There's always been, for years and years and years, and it'll continue to be, that you as a student would have to clearly articulate why you want to go study, what you want to study at the institution that you want to study. That's part of the visa process. So that process hasn't changed. And I don't think the State Department would go out and set new requirements for students coming or originating from, let's say, predominantly Muslim countries to make it even more difficult for them to get their visas. I don't believe that's going to happen, right? But the process is still the same, so you still need to prove that, and that is not in the hands of the university. Right? So once you get admitted, you have to go to the State Department and the consular services to get your visa. And when you get into the country, obviously you're working with the university with all their requirements on campus. And then you have to remember that post-graduation employment is with the Department of Labor. So there's many different departments that are involved in your long-term arrival and study and then employment later. So I hope you remember that not everything falls within the auspices of a university.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. And we are pretty much out of time at this point. If you look in the chat box, everyone's contact information, our presenters, is there, and we will be sending out a follow-up email that includes a recording of this session, and then we will post this up on our YouTube channel and a link on social media. So be looking for that. Everyone, Marco, Nicole, Pablo, Becky, and Lee, thank you so much for joining us and addressing this topic.
Sorry, Evelyn, one quick thing. If you continue to have questions, can we type in an email address where they can send us the questions so we can get back to them?
Yes, and I will be including everyone's email address from the presentation in the follow-up email. And if you have specific questions for those universities, please follow up with them. You can also email us at info@myikc.com. Again, to our presenters, thank you so much, and for everyone joining from India and from the Middle East, thank you for joining us as well, and have a wonderful night. To our presenters, thank you for joining us so early, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.